Day 351 of doing a LeetCode problem every day until I get a job. All right, y'all, we're back again another day, another LeetCode problem where we're doing daily LeetCode problems. And today we have question number 376, wiggle subsequence. The difficulty level is medium, but don't worry because we're going to keep the solution as simple and easy to understand as possible. But before we get started, y'all, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you need any new Apple AirPods, go on and check out that link in the description so you can get you some. Now let's see what the question says. A wiggle sequence is a sequence where the differences between successive numbers strictly alternate between positive and negative. The first difference, if one exists, may either be positive or negative. A sequence with one element and a sequence with two non-equal elements are trivially wiggle sequences. For example, the array of integers 1, 7, 4, 9, 2, 5 is a wiggle sequence because the differences are 6, -3, 5, -7, and 3 alternate between the positive and negative. In contrast, the array of integers 1, 4, 7, 2, and 5 and the array of integers 1, 7, 4, 5, 5 are not wiggle sequences. The first is not because the first two differences are positive, and the second is not because the last difference is 0. A subsequence is obtained by deleting some elements, possibly 0 of them, from the original sequence, leaving the remaining elements in their original order. Given an integer array nums, return the length of the longest wiggle subsequence of nums. All right, y'all, I know that was a lot to take in right there, but let's go ahead and take a look at these examples just to make sure that we are doing this problem correctly. It seems pretty simple, but let's go ahead and look at example 1 anyway. So in example 1, we have the input nums equals an array of integers 1, 7, 4, 9, 2, and 5. The output is 6. The explanation says the entire sequence is a wiggle sequence with the differences being 6, -3, 5, -7, and 3. So as you can see, when we go from 1 to 7, that has an increase of 6. When we go to 7 to 4, that has a decrease of increase, it goes -3. Then from 4 to 9, it's a increase of 5. Then we go 9 to 2, that's a decrease, so -7. Then from 2 to 5, that's an increase, so of 3, right? So every element in this array is part of a wiggle subsequence, right? Right here it says the entire sequence is a wiggle sequence, right? And so these are the differences right here. As you can see, it goes 6, then -3, then +5, then -7, then -3. As you can see, there's only 5 numbers here, but that's not what we're looking for. That's not what we're counting. We're counting all of the elements in this sequence. So we're counting these elements. We're not counting these elements. We're not counting the differences. We're counting the elements. And in this case, there are 6 elements. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So since this entire array is a wiggle subsequence, we can return the count of the entire array, which is 6. So let's go ahead and take a look at example 2, where it might be a little bit more tricky, where they have multiple subsequences that achieve the overall maximum subsequence length. Subsequence that we can create, or the longest wiggle subsequence. So in example 2, we have input nums equals an array of integers 1, 17, 5, 10, 13, 15, 10, 5, 16, and 8. Output is 7. Explanation says there are several subsequences that achieve this length. One is 1, 17, 10, 13, 10, 16, 8, right? So with the differences of being 16, -7, 3, -3, 6, and -8. So let's go ahead and take a look at this subsequence right here. Hold on. So it says 1, 17. I don't know why it skips the 5 in this, but it goes. So we go 1 to 17 to 5 to 10 to 13. 15, 10. So, okay, I'm sorry. So now I remember. Remember, it can be obtained by deleting some elements. So in this case, we're going to have to delete some elements, right? So here we'll just delete the 5 to keep the sequence going. So if we delete the 5, then we still have the 10, then we have the 13, then we could delete this 15, and then we still have the 10, excuse me, the 10 right here. Then we delete this 5, we delete this 16, and we have the 8. So in this subsequence, this is an example where we may have to delete some elements, but it says that's okay because it says right here, subsequence is obtained by deleting some elements, possibly 0. Up here, we didn't have to delete any elements. Here, we're going to have to delete some elements. But even after we delete the elements, the output will still be 7, right? So we go 7, 1 to 17, that's an increase of 16. Boom. Then we go 17 to 10, that's a decrease of 7. Then we go from 10 to 13, that's an increase of 3. Then we delete the 15, and we go from 13 to 10, that's a decrease of 3. Then we go from 10 to 16, that's an increase of 8, that's an increase of 6. Then we go from 16 to 8, and that's a decrease of -8. So, and that leaves us with this subsequence right here. So that's how they got that. And when you see the subsequence, you can see it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 elements in it. So that's why we return 7. So let's go ahead and look at example 3, where it's the same principles apply, but this time there are only 2 elements in the subsequence. So I assume we just have the 1, or it's multiple ways we can do this, but one way we could do this is we have the 1, then we just delete all of these and we just go 1 and 9, and that will allow us our subsequence. Or we could do 2 and we could delete the 1 and all of these and go to 9. It's multiple ways, but at the end of the day, we're going to have to delete the majority of these numbers. So in this case, the output is 2. Boom. So now that we understand the question, y'all, let's get into the fun part, the actual solution. Solution is not that difficult at all. We should get through it fairly quickly. It's a nice little bit of code, but it's not that much. We'll get through it fairly easily. So the first thing we want to do is we want to check if the array has only one element. That means the subsequence length is 1. So we could just use the if statement for that, and we could just say if nums.count equals 1, then we could just return 1 because we know that's the count. Boom. And there's only one element in the array. Now we need to declare a variable, and we're going to start with the least one element in the wiggle sequence. So we're just going to come right here, and we are going to say, we'll declare a variable, call it sequence, and we'll set that equal to 1. Boom. Then we are going to declare another variable. Is going to be a boolean, and true will mean that the last trend is increasing, false will mean that the last trend was decreasing, and nil will mean it's undefined. So to do that, we'll just declare a variable. We'll call it previous trend, and we'll set that, or cast that as a boolean. So we'll say :bool, and then we'll put a question mark and set that equal to nil just to start. Now we need to start our for loop, so we're going to say for I in 1 ... less than sign nums dot count. We're going to open up the brackets. We're going to say let current num equal nums square bracket I. We're going to come underneath that. We're going to say let previous num, that should be previous num, and we're going to set that equal to nums square bracket I minus 1, just like that. Now we're going to use an if let, so we'll come right here. We're going to say if let unwrapped previous trend equals previous trend, then we're going to open up the brackets. And if the previous trend exists, we're going to check if the current difference breaks the trend. So we'll say, we'll come underneath, or we'll come right here, and we'll say, if unwrapped previous trend, we're going to open up the brackets, and we're going to say, if the previous was increasing, we're going to check for a decrease. So we're going to say, if current num is less than previous num, we're going to open up the brackets, and we're going to say, sequence plus equals 1. So we're going to increment sequence, and we're going to update the trend to decreasing. So we're going to say previous trend equals false. Boom. Then we're going to come right here on this if statement right here, and we're going to say else. We're going to open up the brackets. And if the previous was declining, we're going to check for an increase. So we're going to say if current num is greater than previous num, we're going to open up the bracket. We're going to increment sequence. So we'll say sequence plus equals 1, and we're going to set the previous trend to true for increasing. So we're going to say previous trend equals true, just like that. Then we're going to come right here, this if statement right here, we're going to say else, and we're going to open up the bracket, and we're going to see if it's the first time seeing the trend, we're going to say if current num is greater than previous num, we're going to open up the brackets. We're going to increment sequence again. So we're going to say sequence plus equals 1. And we're going to set the initial trend to increasing, so by setting previous trend to true. Boom. Then we're going to come underneath this right here, and we're going to say else if current num is less than previous trend, or excuse me, not previous trend, previous num, we're going to open up the bracket, and we're going to say sequence plus equals 1. Come underneath that, we're going to say previous trend equals false, and we're going to set the trend to decreasing. Boom. Now, if it's equal, then we do nothing and continue, and we could just come right here, all the way down here, and we could just say return sequence. Now that should be all she wrote, y'all. Let's give it a run. Make sure it runs properly. Okay. Sorry, y'all. Got a typo. Should be previous num with no B. So let's run it again. See what happens this time. And it's accepted, y'all. So let's go ahead and submit it. Make sure it's still accepted after we submit it. Ooh, look at that, y'all. 0 milliseconds beats 100% of users. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I like to see. Now, before we leave, y'all, make sure you get one more look at the code. One more look at the code. Read it, learn it, love it. And yeah, with that being said, y'all, I hope y'all learned something today, and I hope to see y'all here tomorrow for another day, another LeetCode problem. See y'all then.